everybody, my name is Joanna and I have to begin this video by addressing that this was supposed to be my Halloween video or like spooky season video, but I got sick so I couldn't film it, and then some other stuff happened that stopped me from filming it in the time, so I'm sorry that this is like some weeks late. I'm also working on like 4 different videos now that are all very long, but I'm very excited about all of them, but it's going to take a while. One of them is my Buffy the Vampire Slayer video. This one was supposed to be my Halloween special, but I couldn't finish it on time, and I'm probably only going to finish it in like summer break, so like January, but I'm very excited about it, which is not even that far because we're already in November. But yeah, anyway, spooky season was upon us while I was preparing this video, I guess, and one thing that I always associated with Halloween was the Scooby-Doo movies. I think that this is because I wasn't allowed to watch horror movies as a kid, so I didn't watch them a lot. My idea of a spooky movie was either a Disney Channel Halloween original movie like Girl vs. Monster, Twitches, I Love Twitches, or the Scooby-Doo movies. And so my plans for Halloween were to watch the 47 Scooby-Doo movies, including the 38 direct-to-video animated ones, 4 made-for-TV animated ones, 2 made for theaters live actions, the 2 made for TV live actions, and the 1 made for theaters animated movie. And then rank them all because ranking is my biggest passion. Unfortunately though, I got kind of busy. I had my midterms, and so the only thing I could do was study, cry because I don't understand not even the basic concept of anything in my major, and watch 2 full seasons of Once Upon a Time as a way of procrastination. So yeah, I didn't have enough time to watch 47 movies, go figure. And this video was supposed to come out before Halloween, as I've said many times, but the week before Halloween, the weather forecast was all rain, and I cannot film when it's raining because I look like this. I look like I'm dying, which I guess fits the theme of Halloween. The sound gets all messed up. Like today I'm filming because it's only cloudy, it's not actually rainy, so you can hear me. So I had only time to film in one specific day, and that specific day was 24 hours after the day I decided to watch the 47 Scooby-Doo movies. So obviously I wasn't going to be able to watch 47 movies in a day, and so I decided to choose 13 movies. Do you get it? 13, because it's the unlucky number or something like that. It's not my unlucky number, but you know. So yeah, I chose 13 movies from the direct-to-video animated ones to watch in 24 hours and then rank them all. I chose the movies that I thought would fit the Halloween spooky season vibe the most, but I also chose some that had nothing to do with Halloween and I just wanted to watch them. And I also tried to get movies that are more recent because I stopped watching the new Scooby-Doo movies in, I want to say, 2013, 2014. This was around the time my mom stopped buying me illegal DVDs. I had a pile of illegal Scooby-Doo DVDs and Barbie DVDs. It was a good time. And so I'm going to talk about the 13 movies now. Honestly, watching 13 Scooby-Doo movies in 24 hours kind of made me lose my mind. I'm not going to lie. But it was a fun time, I guess. So anyway, I'm going to talk about them first and like release date, I guess. Like I'm going to begin with the one that came out first and then end with the latest one, I guess. And then at the end, I'll tell you guys my ranking. Hi guys, Editing Joanna here. I just realized I forgot to say this should be fun, so let's go. So, this should be fun, so let's go. Also, spoiler warning for all of these movies. Hello everybody, so my name is Joanna, but I also like to be positive sometimes. So let's begin with Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island, which is from 1998. And as you guys might know, this was actually the first direct-to-video animated Scooby-Doo movie. It is also widely regarded as the best. I said this in a weird way. It is also regarded as like one of the best, if not the best, Scooby-Doo movie. And up until I wrote in my script yesterday, because I was supposed to have filmed this the day after I watched this movie, but like up until like 2 weeks ago, I had never watched it since I was negative 7 years of age when this movie came out. So now that I have watched it, do I think it holds up? So this movie begins with Daphne on a talk show. And I know the Scooby-Doo canon is basically non-existent, but this makes me a little confused. Like, are they adults here? I don't know, keep this in mind for later, okay? Daphne is talking to the host, talking about the last mysteries, the Scooby Gang. Are they called the Scooby Gang? I don't think so. I'm thinking of Buffy. Anyway, not to talk about Buffy all the time. Yeah, she's talking about how all the mysteries the gang has solved in the past, they were not like actual supernatural stuff. They're all people pretending to be like ghosts and monsters, but they were not actual supernatural stuff. So they got bored of it and now they are breaking up. They are not going to be a mystery solving gang anymore. And since I think they are supposed to be adults in this movie, they have jobs now. So Daphne is doing this traveling show where she's like traveling around the world or something, trying to find actual mysteries, and Fred is her cameraman. That is why Daphne is dressed as like this businesswoman, or like Cordelia in an average Buffy episode, I guess. and Scooby and Shaggy are working at an airport, and Scooby is the person. Not the person. Scooby's the dog that like sniffs stuff to see if there's like drugs on the luggages, but he's only doing this because he finds like food there and he can eat the food, and then they are fired because Scooby is eating the food from luggages. Fun times. And Velma's working at a library or like a bookstore. Yeah, bookstore. So yeah, Velma is bored, and Scooby and Shaggy, I always try to say Shooby when I try to say Scooby and Shaggy. This is making me confused. So then Fred is like, it's time to get the band back together, and he invites Velma, Scooby, and Shaggy and says like, we're going on a trip for Daphne's birthday, but it's not actually a trip for Daphne's birthday, guys. It's actually where they're going to film the first segment of Daphne's show. Unfortunately though, they don't find supernatural stuff, at least not in the beginning, until they meet this girl named Lena. So Lena, first of all, she has a southern accent, which I love. I love the way she speaks.
It's in a bayou not far from here. A pirate named Morgan Moonscar died on the island, and his spirit still haunts the place.
But she's a cook, and she's like, I work at this island called the Moonscar Island. Everybody says the Moonscar Island is haunted by a ghost of a guy named Morgan Moonscar, and seriously, I love her accent so much. I wish I could do southern accents. I can't. Believe me, I have tried. Every time I sing Picture to Burn homophobic version. So anyway, the gang accepts to like visit the island with her. Okay, serious moment here for a minute. For a group of mystery-solving young adults, these people have absolutely no sense of self-preservation. They accept literally any invite from any person they don't know. It's crazy, but anyway. So they arrive at Moonscar Island. Ooh, I will say this is a cool name for an island. And so we meet a guy named Jacques. It's Magnus Chase's sword. Anyway, he's the ferry driver, and then Fred begins filming stuff because he's supposed to be a cameraman. And so Shaggy and Scooby fall down in the water, and then they are saved by a fisherman named Snakebite Scruggs. That is a great name. And so yeah, they arrive at the mansion where Lena's boss lives, and she also has a pepper plantation. Yes, we are at a plantation in the south. Oh, I forgot to mention the place they were going was Louisiana. I feel like this was important for me to mention before because there's some weird stuff in this movie. We'll get there. I will say, I just need to mention, I think the setting is super cool. I mentioned in the middle of an island, in the middle of nowhere, in the southern like swamps. I think this is such a cool setting. Since it's an island, it feels isolating, but it's surrounded by a swamp, so it's like you cannot escape from it. And to make things even spookier, this mansion specifically is like surrounded by cats. There's so many cats everywhere. I like cats. I wouldn't consider myself a cat person. I'm more of a dog person, but I really like cats, so that would be nice. But we meet the house owner, Simone, who is Lena's boss, and she's like, I have a lot of cats. And yeah, she does. She has many cats. There's a lot of cats. So I don't know if you guys remember this, but Scooby-Doo is actually a dog. Like, Scooby is the person. Notoriously, dogs and cats don't really get along. So Scooby-Doo begins like bothering a bunch of cats, and the gardener from the mansion is called Bo gets really annoyed. And I'll just say, Bo was the name of a sim in The Sims 3 Sunset Valley. And when I was a kid, I would play in this town, and I would see this guy, and I had absolutely no idea how to read this guy's name. I had no idea what I was supposed to be reading. But anyway, and you know, we can see Bo is definitely not supposed to look suspicious. So then Daphne talks to Simone, and Simone is like, I think my plantation is haunted. And Daphne is like, oh, that's great. Can we investigate and film this for my show? And Simone is like, yeah, sure, do it. And then we hear a scream. Ooh, is this the first supernatural occurring of this movie? No, it's not. I'm sorry. It's just Scooby and Shaggy tasting the peppers from the pepper plantation, and they're like, oh, this is really spicy. But then we hear another scream later, and that is because actual spooky stuff happening. I know. Turns out they find something written on the wall, which is get away. So then Fred is like, let me get my camera. And he begins filming with his 90s camera, and they see on the footage of a ghost. Woo! And the ghost is like a pirate, and that is no one other than Morgan Moonscar himself. And so Shaggy and Scooby eat a little more. I'm not going to mention every time they eat in this movie because they eat a lot. You know, they're character archetypes, but I'm just going to mention this now because I've always wanted to visit Louisiana, specifically because I think the food there, from what I know, looks delicious. I would love to try it. Or maybe it's just because I'm obsessed with The Princess and the Frog because I watched this movie religiously as a kid. This might have something to do with it. I don't know. So while this is going on, Velma Velma's actually working. Props for Velma. Work while they eat peppers, you know? So she realizes behind the wallpaper from the house, she sees like, oh, that's kind of funky. That's kind of weird. Turns out part of the mansion was built with parts from the ship of Morgan Moonscar. So our silly guys, Scooby and Shaggy, get in a mess with the cats and also a pig. I don't remember where this pig came from, but there is a pig. And so they end up falling down like this hole, and turns out it's a grave. And not only it's a grave, there's a zombie inside it. Yes, we're getting zombies. This might sound really stupid of me, but I forgot this movie was about zombies. Like, I didn't think, oh, Zombie Island, obviously there's going to be zombies here. I literally wrote down in my notes, zombies? So yeah, there's zombies, guys. And this one specific zombie is the man Morgan Moonscar himself. So Shaggy and Scooby run away, and then the gang comes back later to like investigate, but they don't find any signs of zombies themselves. So then it's getting dark, and it's also quiet, and I can't trust anything now. And Lana is like, why don't you guys like sleep at our guest room here? Like, you can stay here to continue doing your stuff later, like investigating. And they accept it. I seriously don't understand these people. This is dangerous. But yeah, they have dinner. The food looks good again. I don't know, it looks delicious. Shaggy sees a ghost on the mirror telling them to leave. And then again, Scooby and Shaggy eat peppers. They are too spicy, and they decide to go to the river to drink water because it's too spicy. But then zombies appear, and so they start running away, but they bump into Bo, yes, the gardener. And Bo has just been acting like suspiciously throughout the whole movie. So Velma's like, I think he's behind this, guys. And Daphne and Fred are like near the mystery machine when they see a zombie. So Fred is like filming, and Daphne tries to take off the mask, or like the contrary. I don't know who tries to take off the mask. I think it's Daphne, but she tries to take off the mask from the zombie. And it's not a costume, guys. There are actual zombies this time. And weirdly, these zombies all have like different clothes from different time periods, which makes them think, oh, that's funky. That's weird. I mean, I don't know if that makes them think that, but I think, oh, that's funky. That's weird. So then we run away. I say we as I'm part of the gang. I'm not. But anyway, Fred ends up dropping his camera on quicksand, so we don't have proof that zombies are real. I know. So Scooby and Shaggy fall down a cave, and they see these spooky dolls, and they realize these spooky dolls are dolls that look exactly like people from their gang, from their friends, but they don't realize that there's maybe something weird going on there. So they began playing with the dolls, and what they are doing to the dolls happens to the people from Mystery Inc. Oh, I forgot to mention this earlier, but Velma also began floating out of nowhere in the mansion before, so now we know how they did that. So Velma, Fred, Daphne, and Bo go back to the mansion, and power is out. We have no power, guys. So Lena arrives and is like, oh, Simone has been taken by the zombies, and she was dragged on a tunnel. So they are like, let's go to the tunnel and find Simone. And they are like following the footprints, but Velma's kind of suspicious because no zombie has followed them up until now. So then Simone shows up, and we realize we are at the cave, not the cave, the grave Scooby and Shaggy were earlier. That is also the grave that they were before. I don't know. And Simone uses the dolls to capture Daphne, Velma, Bo, and Fred. So then Simone gives us her villain monologue. I love those. She talks about how she needs to drain the life of the people who come to the island to keep on being immortal. And then I'm not kidding, she turns into a werecat. Like, she becomes a cat, but it's like a werecat. Like a werewolf, but a cat. And so does Lena. This part was really unexpected for me. It's not like it came out of nowhere with the amount of cats that were mentioned and seen in this movie. But I was not expecting werecats. And I mean this in a positive way. Okay, their backstory. So it turns out Simone and Lena were a part of settlers from this island that lived like normally there until the pirate Morgan Moonscar and his crew showed up and made everyone be killed by an alligator that was in the lake. I don't know how to explain this, but he killed everybody basically in order to like gain control of the island. So Lena and Simone were the only survivors, and they prayed to their cat gods. Yes, apparently there are cat gods in this universe, to kill the pirates and be immortal. So then they got turned into werecats, and they were able to kill the pirates. But turns out they were actually cursed and could only preserve their immortality by absorbing other people's souls every harvest moon. So Lena lured the gang to go into the island with the intention of absorbing their souls. So while this is going on, Scooby and Shaggy are also being chased by Jacques, who is also a werecat. Yes, fun times. And then they realize that the zombies are not the bad guys. They were victims of Lena and Simone, and they were just trying to warn the gang about the werecat and that they had to leave. So the zombies help Scooby, and Shaggy ran away, and they end up in the same cave as everybody else. So Simone gets annoyed at Scooby-Doo because she's a werecat and he's a dog. And while she's trying to like attack Scooby, Stephanie realizes the zombies are actually the good guys. And so Velma's able to set everybody free. And then the werecats and zombies start turning into dust. It's past midnight and they were not able to drain the gang's souls and lives. So they're gone. They're not immortal anymore. And the supernatural is real. And they don't have any footage of it. So okay, now plot twist. Bo is actually a detective and has been working on the missing people cases in the island for a while. So that's why he was like acting sus. And they decide to like make a documentary or something about that with Bo, about the island. But then they leave the island, leaving behind a bunch of cats. So yeah, the one thing I have to talk about is that there are some zombies that are Confederate soldiers and they are supposed to be the good guys in the story. And like, here's the thing, I'm not American, right? So like, the American Civil War is not the history subject I know the most about. But I do know the Confederation was not good. They wanted slaves. So that is something that I have against this movie, morally speaking. But besides that, I have to admit I wasn't really in the mood to watch this movie. But after doing so, I completely understand why it's such a fan favorite. The setting is amazing. As I said, I love how isolating it feels and how, I don't know, it's just a cool setting. I like swamps. Maybe I have this thing with swamps because when I was in the 5th grade, I was supposed to write a book report about every book I read from the library, the school's library. And I was writing my report on the book How to Kill a Monster from like the Goosebumps series because at the time the only thing I read were Goosebumps books. And one of the questions of the report we had to write was, what did you learn from this book? And I wrote down that you should not live in the middle of a swamp in Georgia. Maybe you also shouldn't live in a swamp in Louisiana. Don't live in swamps. And I just really liked how they made the supernatural in this movie be actually real but don't have proof of it. This whole movie feels like a subversion of the Scooby-Doo formula. And it was done perfectly. I love the werecats. I don't know if you saw how excited I got when they happened, but I loved it. Definitely not something I was expecting. Overall, I didn't think this movie would be spooky or right for like Halloween times, but it took me directly back to my 5th grade days, as I said. And I really like the twist that the zombies are actually the good guys. I think this was really good. I just didn't like that there are some Confederate soldiers there. I think they should have not put there. Anyway, this was a great Scooby-Doo movie for spooky season. Someone might say it was perfect for it. I really liked it. 9 out of 10. And let's go to the next one. The next movie in this list is Scooby-Doo and the Witch's Ghost. And even though I was negative 6 years of age when this movie came out, I actually did watch it as a kid. My older sister had a DVD that one side was Scooby-Doo and the Cyber Chase and the other side was the Witch's Ghost. So I watched these two movies a lot. And the Witch's Ghost begins with our gang solving a mystery at a museum. They are in a chase sequence and the soundtrack to this part of this movie is Billy Ray Cyrus singing Scooby-Doo, Where Are You?
Take our pal Billy Ray Cyrus, for example.
Scooby-Dooby-Doo, where are you?
Pre-Hannah Montana, Billy Ray Cyrus was really something else. Here's him in the season 2 finale of Degrassi The Next Generation playing a cowboy limo driver. So yeah, out of nowhere, a guy shows up at the museum after they are like done solving the mystery. He introduces himself as Ben Ravencroft, and Velma's like, oh my god, you are my favorite mystery horror writer. I love your books. And then Ben invites them to go to his town in Massachusetts, his hometown called Oakhaven. Okay, so we had a movie set in the South. It's time to get a movie set in the New England region. The only thing I associate with New England is the witch trials in Salem. I'm sorry, maybe I shouldn't be because this has to do with this movie, but anyway. And I actually associate with Zack and Cody, the Boston Tea Party episode. You know what I mean? And Magnus Chase too. Okay, there's more repertoire about my knowledge about New England. Anyway, so they just met this guy literally 10 minutes ago. He showed up literally out of nowhere at the museum that it was empty and closed. And he's like, go to my hometown, and they accepted? Like, who in the world would accept that? But again, these characters have no sense of self-preservation, so they do. So when we arrived to Oakhaven, I don't know how to say this, I'm sorry. But anyway, they discovered the mayor has turned the city into this big like tourist attraction. Everyone is dressed like the 1700s. And there's apparently the idea going around that the ghost of Sarah Ravencroft has been haunting the town. And you might be thinking, this last name sounds a little familiar. And that is because she's an ancestor of Ben, the horror writer. So she was prosecuted as a witch during the witch trials. I guess my stereotypes about New England were correct after all. But then Ben actually explains that she was just a Wiccan, like she tried to help people with their health with medicine that she made with plants, like she was not a witch. So Shaggy finds a little shoe buckle on the ground, and him and Scooby go to a diner. And the scene always made me hungry as a kid. So while they are eating, Velma, Daphne, Fred, and Ben and some other town people like stay out waiting for the ghost of Sarah to arrive. But she doesn't show up there because she actually finds Shaggy and Scooby and begins throwing fireballs at them. So yeah, after she's gone, the gang goes to like investigate what is going on, what is this ghost. But they only find tree branches and the Hex Girls. Yes, this movie has the Hex Girls, the echo goth girl band composed of Thorn, Luna, and Dusk. Gay Awakening for Maybe Me included. So yeah, Mr. Ink splits up and they go do different things. So Daphne and Fred think the Hex Girls are witches because they hear them talking about something that kind of sounds like a ritual. They also sing a song, and this musical number has been living rent-free in my head for the past 18 years of my life.
I'm a hex girl, and I'm gonna put a spell on you.
So Velma and Ben are investigating the barn and they notice a truck there. So she realizes what is going on and reunites everyone in the woods. But then the witch attacks them again, fun times, but they are able to capture her. And Velma unmasks her and reveal that it was Thorn's father. Yes, the father of one of the Hex Girls members. And apparently her name is also actually Sally, not Thorn. But yeah, Velma explains the truck was lifting the witch, so it looked like she was flying. And it was not only Thorn's father, but actually everybody in town, including the mayor and the owner of the diner where Scooby and Shaggy went to eat earlier. They decided to do this because they thought the idea of the town being haunted would like boost the tourism, and so it would be better for the economy. And Ben gets mad that they are using the memory of his unfairly convicted ancestor for something like this, which fair. You might be thinking that this is where this movie ends, but no, it's not. Thorn, who's the Hex Girl we just discovered is actually named Sally, mentions that she's 1/16th Wiccan. Like, she's 1/16 part Wiccan. What she and the Hex Girls were planning was not a ritual. They were just talking about a tea they had to drink because they are going to perform at a concert, so they want their voices to be good. So something that I didn't mention, and it's kind of important, was that throughout this whole movie, Ben has been trying to find Sarah's, his ancestor, diary, where she wrote her medicine recipes. And so Velma realizes the shoe buckle that Shaggy found is actually the lock on Sarah's book based on a painting that Ben has of Sarah in his house. And so they go to where Shaggy found it and just begin digging. And there they find it, Sarah's diary. But it doesn't look like a diary. It turns out it's an evil spell book. Ooh. So then Ben gives his villain monologue where he explains that Sarah was no Wiccan. She was in fact just an evil witch. And that he had only gone to the museum that day to find them and invite them to go to Oak Heaven so they would help him find the spell book. You see, guys, that is why you don't trust people who randomly show up at the closed, empty museum you are at to invite you to go to their hometown. Just saying. So yeah, Ben captures the mayor, the Hex Girls, and Thorn's father, and he also resurrects the ghost of Sarah. And I don't really understand Ben's plan here, like if he misunderstood what he thought his ancestor would think about this, but they are not meshing well because Sarah actually wants to destroy the whole world. Ben doesn't want that. He just wants to control everything. But Sarah's like, I want to kill everybody. So he's like, no, that is not what I wanted. Be careful what you wish for, right? So he ends up trying to get Sarah back into the book. But only a Wiccan can put her back there. But guys, remember, Thorn is 1/16. I don't know how to read fractions. In Portuguese, we say 16 avos, which I think is terrible. But yeah, she's a percentage of Wiccan, so they are like, Thorn, you should do this. So everybody begins fighting for the book. Spooky stuff happens. Sarah like fights them. I don't know, but they end up getting the book, and Thorn reads like a spell that puts Sarah back into the book, and then Ben also gets thrown there with her. And then the movie ends with the Hex Girl singing an amazing song about the environment. 10 out of 10 in my books. But yeah, I sincerely think this is a 10 out of 10 movie for me. And also for Halloween. I mean, it has the stereotypical Halloween vibe of like pumpkin, small town in New England, witches, ghosts, the witch trials. It is a cool setting. And this movie also has probably the most serious tone out of all the movies I watched for this video. And I really like Ben's character motivation at the end. I don't know if I read too much into this. This might be it. But I think that what is going on is that he thinks he'll never live up to like the scariness and spookiness of his ancestors who were all like witches and evil people, and he has no magic. He's just a guy writing horror novels. So he's trying to live up to his family's legacy by writing novels, but he doesn't think it's enough, so he wants to control this whole town. I think that is cool, and I have no idea if this was actually what they were trying to do. Maybe it's not, but this is how I read the situation. And the Hex Girls, of course. I mean, I love the Hex Girls. I love them. This is a great movie, seriously. And this might be nostalgia speaking because, as I said, I loved this movie as a kid, but I think it's great. So the movies from now on, I'm not going to do such a detailed explanation of plot, or else this video would be like 3 hours long. And the two movies I talked about earlier, like The Witch's Ghost and Zombie Island, I think they are the most popular ones, I want to say, because a lot of the Scooby-Doo fandom, if I can call that, are millennials or like older Gen Z, so they grew up with these movies. I don't see a lot of people my age talking about Scooby-Doo. So I don't know, maybe people who are going to watch this wanted me to talk about those movies, and now I'm going to be more brief in the next ones. But anyway, let's go to the next one. So the next movie I watched was Scooby-Doo Pirates Ahoy from 2006 when I was 1 year old. And this is the first movie in this list that I wanted to watch that has absolutely nothing to do with Halloween. It doesn't even have any spooky vibes. I just really wanted to watch it because I loved this movie as a kid. And well, what I actually learned from this experience is that maybe you should leave some things to the nostalgia. Besides not being that spooky in the first place, it's also not very good. So this movie begins with Fred's birthday, I know, and if you're wondering how old he's supposed to be.
So, Freddy, how old are you going to be?
43.
You'll die wondering. Okay, tangent here. I know there isn't an actual Scooby-Doo canon, and they are just the age they are supposed to be to fit in the story. That's fine, I don't mind it. But I do find it weird when they are teenagers and they are just going on these adventures and stuff, because like, why aren't you going to school? Like, go to school. You are supposed to be in school. And I'm specifically talking about the movies, not the TV shows, which I plan on watching. I haven't watched Mystery Incorporated since it was first airing. So yeah, it's Fred's birthday and his parents are surprising him with a cruise in the Caribbean. But turns out it's actually a cruise in the Bermuda Triangle, and it's a mystery cruise ship, so a lot of spooky stuff is happening, and the Mystery Inc. is like solving everything, and the people from the ship are like, well, this was supposed to be like a surprise. You were supposed to be solving these mysteries, but you're not leaving any mystery for any of the other guests. So that's not fun, and everything is a little boring until a guy named Rupert Garcia. Why did I say Garcia like that? Rupert Garcia, I have trouble saying like the two R's in the same sentence. Like Rupert Garcia. Anyway, he's an astrocartographer, which means he makes maps of the stars. And he's found, and he's like talking about, he's like a naufrago, castaway. Is this how you say that? His ship, something happened to his ship. What happened? So he says a bunch of ghost pirates took over his ship and all of his crew is gone. And we also get introduced to Biff Wellington, great name by the way. He's a billionaire who's kind of eccentric. And this is Biff Wellington, remember Biff Wellington? So to summarize everything, later the ship has a dinner costume party, which is the most Halloween thing about this movie. And everyone gets hypnotized by a magician named Mr. Mysterio, except for Scooby and Shaggy. Again, I was going to say Shooby. And we don't know why they did not get hypnotized, but they didn't. So then later the ghost pirates arrive and they capture everybody in the ship, including Fred's mom. So basically, to cut short the whole movie, we discovered that Mr. Mysterio mostly gaslighted, but also kind of hypnotized Biff Wellington, the eccentric billionaire, into believing that he was Captain Skunkbeard, who is the captain of the ship of the ghost pirates, and then he hypnotized everyone that day on dinner to make everyone think they are pirates and like put on costumes on them so they think they are pirates and look like pirates. Because he wanted to get a meteor called the Heaven's Light that was known to have like mystical abilities, and I think he wanted like immortality from it or like money. If I'm not mistaken, Biff Wellington wanted the Heaven's Light to be immortal or something, and Mr. Mysterio wanted to sell it to be rich. I don't know, I don't remember. And he was using Rupert Garcia's Star Maps to find them. Star Maps is a very good song by Ellie and AJ, by the way. Listen to it, it's great. Oh yeah, that's exactly what happened. I just read my script, guys. I should have read that before, but exactly. So Biff Wellington wanted the Heaven's Light because he thought it would make him immortal, but actually Mr. Mysterio just gaslighted him and like hypnotized him, and he just wanted to use him to get into the Heaven's Light to get it because it's actually just a bunch of gold, and he wanted to sell it to be rich. And okay, I just have to admit this movie was kind of bad. I do think it was kind of fun in the beginning, but I hated the the resolution of the mystery because it was obvious at the same time that it had no foreshadowing at all. Biff Wellington is the only extra character we get introduced to. He just shows up, he's like, I'm an eccentric billionaire, and he's just there. He doesn't come up any other time. He was the only other character too, so it's obvious that he is involved with it, right? But there are no clues or foreshadowing. A good mystery has clues and foreshadowing, guys. But I don't know, it was a fun movie, like it was fine. And it's nostalgic to me. As I said, I loved this movie as a kid. I watched the DVD so much, it was all scratched. And I tried watching it again when I was like 13 or 14. And I couldn't get it to work because it was all scratched. Also, I got this really great piece of information from the Scooby-Doo wiki. Fred is revealed to be very muscular while being shirtless in the mystery cruise ship's pool. He has washboard abs, a tri-slit. How do you read this?
Chiseled.
Tri-slit chest and very toned muscles. Very good to know. So the next movie in my list is Scooby-Doo and the Goblin King from 2008. And I do think the Goblin King is like the Scooby-Doo Halloween movie. I remember I had the DVD of this movie as a child and my cousin stole it, or I stole it from him. I don't know, there was something to do with my cousin. My cousin is Paraguayan, so I remember the DVD being in like, it had weird language settings, but I don't know if it was actually my cousin's because my cousin was 1 year old when this movie came out. I don't know. I don't remember. So the Goblin King begins in Halloween and the gang is at a carnival. Woo! I love carnivals. That is actually a lie. I have never been to a carnival, but I think they look cool and I think they're a cool setting for a Halloween thing. So yay, carnival. So they wanted to attend this magician's show in the carnival, but turns out he doesn't accept dogs in this performance. Like he doesn't want dogs in the crowd. And Shaggy takes this personally. So him and Scooby are like, we are going to ruin this guy's performance and expose him as a not real magician. And that's exactly what they do. Kind of petty on them, to be honest. So the magician, I don't know how to pronounce his last name, so I'm just going to call him the magician throughout this movie. So this magician goes to his stand after the disaster that his performance was, and there's a fairy there. That is why I'm dressed as a fairy, although I don't look anything like the fairy from this movie. But anyway, the fairy is this fairy princess named Willow. I'm sorry, I cannot stop thinking about Buffy. I need to get Buffy out of my system. I need to finish my Buffy video because I need to talk about Buffy. Anyway, and so the magician captures the fairy. He thinks it's a bug, so he's like with those bug catchers trying to kill the bug. But then he catches the fairy and he's like, oh my god, this is a fairy. So he absorbs her magic. Fun times. So the gang is trick-or-treating and Shaggy and Scooby enter this shop. It's actually a mansion, but the guy there is like an old man and he's like, this is a shop for actual magical stuff. These things are actually magical. And he becomes a rabbit. And I think he's turned by the magician who just got magical powers. So the magician tells everybody that he's going to get the scepter of the Goblin King in the other world, like the soul spirit world, I think is what they call it, so that he can get the dark magic too, because he only has the light magic from Princess Fairy Willow, but he also wants the dark magic from the Goblin King. And if he does that, he's going to cause an imbalance in the world that is going to turn everybody into Halloween monsters. I love this concept so much. So it's up to Shaggy and Scooby to get the scepter from the Goblin King before the magician does. And it has to be before sundown or else everybody's turning into Halloween monsters. And so they go to the spirit world where they meet a bunch of Halloween monsters and creatures. They meet little fairies, they meet a witch, and they also meet Jack, who's one of those Halloween pumpkins. And he says, do you know what I'm saying? In a tone that reminds me of Solar and Taller Than You.
You know what I'm saying?
Do you know what I'm saying?
So after this adventure through the spirit world, they found out that the Goblin King is actually Princess Fairy Willow's dad, which we should have thought considering Goblin King, Princess Fairy. I don't know, usually the princess is the daughter of the king. And like everything that happened was kind of like her fault because she sneaked out and like she's grounded now. But they apologize, they hug each other, it's a family moment, it's sweet. And everybody returns to the real world and the memories from what happened have been erased. And yeah, as I said, I think that this is the Scooby-Doo Halloween movie. It is set on Halloween. The cast is literally Halloween monsters. And it's a musical. I forgot about to mention that, but it is a musical. I love musicals and the songs in this movie are great. They did not have to go as hard as they do. This movie actually gives me Halloween Town vibes in the best way possible, but I did find it kind of boring, especially in the middle. I think that this is because this is a story mainly about Scooby and Shaggy. There is a subplot with the other Mystery Inc. people that I don't remember about. But yeah, Scooby and Shaggy are the characters who usually their whole thing is that they are getting into shenanigans. They are like running away and like getting into shenanigans, and I don't usually love this type of plot. Like, I like it if it's one scene, but I think that a whole movie of this was a little too much to me. But I do think it's a great movie. It's a fun time, as I said. It's giving Halloween Town. That is great to me. Anyway, if you want a Halloween themed Scooby-Doo movie, this is the one to watch. There's plenty more Halloween movies in this list, but this is the one I recommend. The next movie I watched was Abracadabra Do, which is from 2010, and in this movie, Velma has a sister named Madeline, and I just love the Scooby-Doo trope of introducing a random family member when you cannot think of a plot. I think it's great, but keep Madeline in mind. Why am I holding my lipstick? So Madeline, who is Velma's younger sister, attends this magician school. It's like stage arts, and it's a boarding school in a castle, and it's called Merlin Brothers Academy of Magic. And this movie was released in 2010, so it's safe to assume that this is a ripoff of Harry Potter. But I think it's better than Harry Potter. Yes, I said it. Even though I don't like Harry Potter, I don't mind that this is a Harry Potter ripoff because I do like the boarding school setting. I'm sorry. So yeah, what's going on is that the Merlin Brothers Academy of Magic has been being haunted by a griffin, and so Velma's parents just send her and her friends there. They're like, I don't know, solve this mystery. Go protect your sister, you, who is probably also a teenager or like early 20s. You are a young person. Yes, you should be the person responsible to fix this. So the faculty of the school is composed by Merlin, who is the owner. Weird name. And he was like a magician, like a stage magician. And Marlin, who is his brother, and he's the cook and butler. And there's also Christo, who was Merlin's stage assistant when he was a magician. And there are other teachers and like other students besides Madeline, but they all left the school because of the griffin. We also get introduced to a businessman whose name I cannot remember, and he wants to buy the castle in which the academy is located, and he seems like a prime suspect because thanks to the lack of students, Whirling would be like willing to sell the castle for very cheap. So while this is going on, the gang actually has encounters with the griffin multiple times, and also with another mystical creature, a banshee, who is this woman who screams a lot in the lake. And this creature is from Irish folklore, and there's actually a lot of elements from Irish folklore and culture in this movie, which I think is pretty cool. They also find the grave of the founder of the school, of the castle, who built the castle in Ireland. It's weird because I think they mentioned like the castle was in Ireland and they transported it to the US. Weird times, guys. But they find the grave of the original owner of the school, who is this guy named Lord of Flannery. And they also discovered that Marlin is into special effects and animatronics. Like, he used to animate the show for Whirlin when Whirling was a magician. So yeah, at the end we discovered that it was Marlin all along. I know, shocking. So he was always jealous of Whirling, and he created the griffin with animatronics and special effects. And he also created the banshee that way. And the businessman guy only wanted to buy the castle because of a love story he had with one of the maids from the castle. She was like, they went there together when they were younger, and she was always complaining about how Whirlin was like changing the traditions of the castle and how he was messing everything up with his changes. So the businessman wanted to buy the castle to impress her, so he would like, you can do whatever you want with the castle, please love me. And I just want to say that I really love this movie, okay? I watched it religiously as a kid because one time my mom was traveling and she came back home and gave me the DVD of this movie. This was the one Scooby-Doo DVD that I had that was not pirated, and she gave me the DVD, so I watched it a lot. And then my dad traveled like some months after it, and he didn't know I already had this DVD, so he brought me as a present the same DVD, and so I had two DVDs. Both of them were not pirated. They were my only DVDs, were not pirated, and I watched them all the time. When one was scratched, I could watch the other one. It was perfect. It was such a good time. And I think this movie just has the perfect atmosphere. Even though it isn't a Halloween movie, I do think it's great for the spooky season because it has some cool monster sequences. I think the mystery is intriguing, and I think the setting is really cool. I think it's tied with Zombie Island to one of my favorite settings. I like the boarding school feeling. Again, it feels very isolating. It's the school in the middle of nowhere. It's a castle, which is really cool. And as I said, I like the elements of Irish folklore that are in this movie. I'm not Irish. I don't understand a lot about Ireland. If you're Irish and you're offended by this movie, please tell me about it. And seriously, I don't understand why this one isn't a fan favorite and why people seem to not like it. Like, I understand saying, oh, this isn't my favorite Scooby-Doo movie, but why don't you like it though? I do agree that the villain is kind of predictable, and I don't like Shaggy's and Madeline's romance. It's weird. I mean, at least it's not Shaggy and Velma. We need to think that. And this is part of the time when the writing in Scooby-Doo movies were making the girl characters in a questionable way. I don't like that much, but I think this is one of the least worst ones from the time. But yeah, besides these things, which I think are the biggest problems with this movie, I just adore it. I think it has the best vibes. As I said, the setting is so cool. The food looks really good. It makes me want to eat cheese pizza, and I don't even like cheese. I'm just like Nick Jonas in introducing me for real. I'm good at wasting time. I think lyrics need to rhyme. I'm not trying to grow a mustache, but I eat cheese only on the pizza, please, and sometimes on a homemade quesadilla. I've never eaten a quesadilla. Maybe I should do that, otherwise it smells like feet to me. Exactly, thank you. I like the stage magic situation we have, that it's like, it's magicians. Magicians are so cool, guys. I like magic that is not supposed to be taken as real. I like circus vibes. But yeah, back to the girls that I was talking about. A lot of Scooby-Doo movies from the time, they write the women in a way that I don't like. And as I said, although I don't think this movie is like great in this aspect, I think it's a lot better from other movies. Daphne, for example, she's always the one example of, you can see how they treat the women characters. Just look at how they write Daphne. And a lot of the times they make her out to be stupid and vapid and shallow, and this is not what is going on in this movie. She's none of these things. She is no Zombie Island Daphne. I think Zombie Island is the one movie that takes Daphne the most seriously as a character, which I like because I think she should be. I don't think we should be taking overly feminine characters as dumb. I don't like this trope, and I don't think this is a problem in this movie, but this is something I'm going to talk more about in the later movie, so just keep this in mind. So the next movie is Big Top Scooby-Doo from 2012, and I suppose Big Top is probably a circus expression, but I have no idea what this means, and honestly it sounds really weird to me. But yeah, this is the circus Scooby-Doo movie. I just said that I like circus stories, right? The song that plays in the intro of this movie has been living rent-free in my head for the past 10 years. I only watched this movie once when I was 8 years old, and the song has been here all this time.
The circus comes to town.
So yeah, in this movie, there is a werewolf terrorizing the town they are on, and also gangland shootings.
Nothing bad ever happens here.
Well, gangland shootouts.
No, I also did not expect to hear gangland shootings in a Scooby-Doo movie. So yeah, werewolves, and there's also a Swedish rock star named Wolfric. I don't know how to say his last name. I'm sorry, but it's Wolfric von Rydingstad. I'm sorry to the population of Sweden. In town for a show. He's in town too, and he also claims that he's a werewolf. So that's fun, right? That's convenient. And there's also a circus in town. One might say the circus comes to town. So the owner of the circus asks for the help of Mr. Ink to solve who is the werewolf, like what is going on. He doesn't think it's an actual werewolf because this is like, people are not going to his circus because they are afraid of the werewolf. So we get Mr. Ink, our dear characters, infiltrating in the circus, and each one of them is going to a different like attraction and interacting with different people from the circus, and they accept that. And weirdly, in this movie, Fred is really into circuses. Apparently, he went to circus camp, which is great. I'm happy for him. Also, this whole movie reminds me of that one Casey Undercover episode. So Daphne is a clown, and she has like 2 clown people working with her, and one of them is like this failed actor who was from the Soviet Union, so that is interesting. Fred is also doing the trapeze, and we get the revelation that maybe Fred murdered some people in circus camp.
I worked out on the trapeze a bit, but I ended up breaking a lot of bones.
You seem to have healed well.
What? Oh, not my bones.
So the other people in the trapeze are these German lady who likes to flirt, and this Spanish, I suppose, guy who is very jealous, and they are a couple. So the girl is constantly flirting with Fred, and the guy is arguing with him because he's like, she's my girlfriend. Velma is the one person who gets thrown out of a cannon by this guy who's French, and I cannot pronounce his name, I'm sorry. And Scooby and Shaggy are working with the animal trainer. So yeah, basically to summarize everything, Shaggy gets really famous by his circus act because people think like he's controlling Scooby-Doo really in a funny way, so he's like famous, and he begins putting Scooby-Doo aside because now he's famous. Yes, I love this trope. Somebody also tries to plant evidence against the circus owner by putting like a book about werewolves in his bookshelf because he mentions in the beginning that he doesn't understand anything about these werewolves. And Velma mentions that the book was printed in Estonia in 1853, and I looked it up, and Estonia was not a country in 1853. So get your history correct, Scooby-Doo. The Swedish rock star guy goes to a performance of the circus and he reads everything as this very deep metaphor for society. And honestly, he's correct. That is about society. We do live in a society.
The circus is a metaphor for society, don't you think? Only instead of like rich people and poor people, there's other things.
Daphne also does this motorcycle act, even though we don't know if she's allowed to drive. And she also mentions that she did this as a kid, and I have so many safety concerns about that. And so yeah, who's the werewolf? The animal trainer! He trained the baboons to act like werewolves. I don't remember how exactly he made them look like werewolves. And he was doing this because he was trying to steal a bunch of like precious gems. And I don't remember exactly how this worked. I think he like would distract people with the werewolves and use this time to like steal gems. I don't know, I don't remember. I watched too many movies in a single day. So the gang finds out it's him and they like get the gems back. But there is one jewel missing. There was one thing missing, and that was the moment I knew. And it's the most powerful jewel of all. The guy is being taken to prison, but they also realize that the French guy who was working with Velma is also involved. And it's this plot twist. There are actually two villains, and one was going to escape. And they recover the gem while Wolfric sings this great metal song. This movie isn't that spooky. I didn't remember if it was spooky from my time. I didn't remember there were werewolves on it. I only remember like the circus situation. But it has a very goofy tone that I actually really love. It doesn't take itself too seriously, and I do think most of the jokes pay off. And I do think the twist ending is nice. I wish I didn't remember it. I did remember it because I remember being shocked by it at the age of 8 when I watched this movie for the first time. I did like to meet every circus performer. I think they all had very like nice personalities, or I wouldn't say nice, but they had like defined personalities, and they were all supposed to be jokes, so it's fine. Although I do think that one Fred situation of the jealous guy with the flirty girl, that was kind of weird, but I don't know. And I do like the resolution to this mystery. I think the combination of it being not actual werewolves and more than one person being involved, I think this makes up for a cool ending. But I do have to admit that I do think this movie drags on a little bit in the middle. We especially did not need Shaggy's like dream sequence of him being adored. I think his whole plotline in this movie of being like, now I'm famous, so I'm going to ignore my best friends. I think this is a stupid trope that I don't like that much. But had Shaggy and Scooby not had conflict in this movie, they would have nothing to do in it. Like, they wouldn't have a single plot line. And I do think it's important to give all the characters something to do in these movies. This is the thing they did a lot in some movies, is like giving nothing for like Daphne to do. And I wouldn't like Shaggy to be given the same treatment. So I do understand why they gave him this plot line. It's because he wouldn't have anything to do in the movie. But I still find it boring. This movie also began the himboification of Fred, and since this is the beginning, it's still not totally Flanderized, so I like him. I think Himbo Fred is the best Fred. So overall, this movie had no Halloween vibes, but it was really fun and I really liked it. So the next movie is Scooby-Doo Stage Fright, which is from 2013. And for some reason in this movie, Daphne and Fred are going to Chicago.
Did you know Chicago has almost 200 art galleries?
I didn't know. That's interesting. Thank you. To compete in this America's Got Talent-esque talent competition. They're going to sing there, and Fred is holding a guitar in the mystery machine, and I just had a feeling that at any second he was going to begin singing Wonderwall. Also in this movie, Daphne likes Fred, and she's like trying to think of a way to tell him that. So we arrive at the opera house this talent competition is going to take place, and we discover that the popularity of this place has been down on its luck ever since the 70s when it got turned into a disco. I love disco. And began being haunted by a Phantom of the Opera like ghost, like it's kind of like the Phantom of the Opera. So Daphne and Fred are competing against, first of all, this spoiled little girl named Chrissy who has the biggest forehead I have ever seen, and this little girl named Emma who is a violin player. And the theater is again haunted by a ghost saying to everyone that Chris is going to win. So Emma plays the violin really well, which I really like because, as Nick Jonas once said in introducing me, I love the sound of violins and making someone smile. And Chrissy, who is a literal child, sings a song to me me, that's cinema. Okay, and so who is the ghost after all? A lot of people. The ghost is a lot of people. The first one is a guy named Steve. So this guy lives in the basement of the theater because he only saw his face in one of those like distorted mirrors, and he thought he was way too ugly to go outside when he's just a normal looking dude. And I do feel bad for him, but he hates disco, so we cannot be friends. Also, he terrorized people for a very long time, so that's not nice either. But disco, guys.
Do you understand how mirrors work at all?
Give me a break, I grew up in a sewer.
The second ghost is Lance Damon, who he's the one telling everybody that Chrissy should win. The third one is Brick Pimiento. This guy's name is Brick Pepper, yes. He is the host of this show, and he did this because he thought it was going to boost the numbers of audience, like more people would watch the show thanks to that. And the fourth person was Dewey, the director of the show, or like assistant director, I don't know, he's part of the crew, and he got disguised as like the Phantom to steal a diamond because there were a lot of other ghosts. So he was like, no one is going to know it's me, but he didn't even have a mask. So obviously people discovered that it was him. So at the end, Daphne and Fred purposely lose by telling a bunch of really bad dad jokes so that the talented little girl who plays the violin, Emma, would win because she's like a fan of them and they were winning, which I don't understand why. Like, don't get me wrong, I don't think they are too bad, but I think they are not too good either. So I have so many questions. And they also sing a duet about how they like each other. Fun times. This is not going to be carried on for the next movie, just so you know. So yeah, this is another movie that wasn't that spooky. I thought this one was going to be, but it was not. But it was very hilarious. I liked the songs, I liked the jokes, and I really loved the multiple villain reveals. The only thing I didn't like about this movie is that instead of putting the Hex Girls there, like we have the Hex Girls, guys, they made up a completely new goth girl band called, I don't remember what they're called. Did I write down? I didn't write down what they are called, but it's this dinosaur-like name. Is probably like Rex something, which reminds me of the Hex Girls. But the thing is, I think the joke is supposed to be like they don't understand anything about like goth music or like rock music or any music they talk about because they talk about singing country before and they are just going with like what's popular, I guess. I think that this is the joke. And I know they are supposed to be cringy, but I don't care. I want the Hex Girls. So the next movie is Frankencreepy from 2014. And we begin this movie with Daphne being an influencer or like a model. I don't get it, but she's on a live stream, and in this live stream she gets asked about a bunch of cases that the Mystery Inc. solved in a TV show from the 80s, I believe, and she like mentions them. Don't quote me on that. I don't know if it's a scooby-doo show from the 80s. I think it is. One of them is about some lawyers, and the other one is about a pop singer from a band named Mamba Wamba. So she's complaining about how they were all real people instead of actual monsters, this type of stuff. And Velma, starting from this movie, has one personality trait, guys, and that personality trait is that she's skeptical of the supernatural. So a family lawyer of Velma's family shows up and is like, your great uncle died and he left you a house that is haunted. My favorite trope. And it is because you are the youngest person in your family. Funnily enough, no one ever mentions Madeline. And this house is in Transylvania, but not the place in Romania, a town named Transylvania in Pennsylvania. That's a lot of Vanias there. So they are going to Transylvania in this train, and Velma tells her spooky backstory. Woo! Turns out her family's name is actually von Dinkenstein. When her family arrived to the US, they shorted it to Dinkley. Fun times. And her ancestor, who is haunting the mansion, she supposes, is actually the person who created Frankenstein and inspired Mary Shelley. So this is why Velma is so attached to like scientific explanations of the monsters. She's trying to get away from the legacy of her family. So yeah, we meet some characters in this mansion like Iago and Mrs. Vanders, who are servants there. And we also see the old lab of Baron von Dinkenstein, where there is a monster being held, but the monster is not alive. So Velma gets hypnotized by Mrs. Vanders, and the rest of the characters go to this local fair. And weird things happen there. So Shaggy and Scooby win this eating contest, and after that they are unable to feel hungry again. That's weird, right? Fred cannot stop mourning the loss of the mystery machine because yeah, we lost the mystery machine, and everything he sees reminds him of her, the mystery machine. And Daphne gets her hair frizzy and becomes overweight, which to her is the end of the world. So when they arrive back to the mansion, they realize Velma has also changed both in appearance and personality. Now she's obsessed with Rhea reanimating the monster, not by magic, but by actual science. But she's also being very mean. So at the end of the day, they discover there's this huge reserve of natural gas below the mansion. And everything that happened was actually this big conspiracy by the lawyers and the Mamba Wamba singer from the cases Daphne was coincidentally talking about in the beginning of the movie on her live stream. And one of the lawyers was pretending to be Velma's family lawyer, and all of this was the town's way to get revenge against Mystery Inc. Velma also has like an explanation for the weird things that happened, and she points out that the villains could have just gotten the natural gas and like sold it for a bunch of money, and they just lost a bunch of money, making them suffer, and they were discovered at the end. So this whole scheme was for nothing. Okay, so what did I think about this movie? This movie was actually pretty great, especially at tying everything back to the beginning. So it was a nice movie, except for the fat phobia and the girls. I'm going to talk about it, guys. It has some great spooky vibes. I just didn't like the girls' personalities in this movie. Daphne is too vapid and shallow. She's completely looks obsessed, and she gets a very fat-phobic plotline. For her, the end of the day is that she's overweight now. And Velma is also just mean. This is the beginning of her character having no character traits besides being too obsessive with proving the supernatural isn't real and being way too logical. And at the beginning, I think it's fine. I think this is a good premise for this movie specifically, but it gets so worse throughout the rest of these movies. Also, Fred has nothing to do in this movie. I'm sorry. Like, his plotline with the mystery machine, like missing it, it's funny and all, but besides that, what is he there for? This is also one of the newer ones that is the least funny. I didn't find it funny, but it was a nice mystery and conclusion. I do think that if the girls in this movie had been written better without these aspects that I don't like that much, I would have liked this movie a lot better, but I didn't, so that's not fun. So the next movie is Scooby-Doo and the Curse of the 13th Ghost, which was released in 2019. And okay, I'm going to be honest, I don't remember almost anything that I watched in this movie. This was the second to last movie I watched, and I was completely out of it by this point. I do know it's a conclusion from a show from the 80s where like each episode it was like only Shaggy and Daphne and like Scooby and Flim Flan, who I had heard about. I think I watched this show at some point because I do remember Flim Flan, who's this little boy here. But yeah, they were like chasing 12 demons, and the last episode was never like released, so the 13th Ghost never got defeated. And so this is what this movie is about. This movie has a Ella Enchanted style rhymed introduction, which I love. It has Flim Flan, who now is a teenager who raps.
With a capital T, like the one in Tormented and Terrified and Truly Trick-or-Treatified. I'm talking about ghosts. I'm talking about goblins, ghouls, and freaks galore. To fight off fiends and freaks and more, you need a monster weapon store.
Apparently the gang are almost 18 in this movie, so we have an age now. So they are in snow. Daphne becomes the leader. Fred went to cheerleading camp.
I'm a cheerleader.
Almost everyone hates teenagers, which I agree with.
I'm afraid of teenagers.
Velma is annoying and skeptical, and again has no other personality traits. I think this movie is a good example of the fall of the modern Scooby-Doo movies. I did grow up with the movies that came out like from 2010 to after, so I do like their more goofier tones and more self-aware approach, I would say. But everything got so exaggerated at some point. This movie is self-aware to the point where it's annoying. And Velma's character is a shadow of what she used to be. She has no depth at all. It was still a fun movie, but not my favorite one. So the next movie was Return to Zombie Island, which was also released in 2019. And yes, there is a Zombie Island sequence, and you might have not heard about it because it's terrible. It commits assassination to the Zombie Island name, and also retcons everything that happens in that movie. So remember I talked about how they were adults in that movie, they had jobs? Well, Daphne says, oh, that time I was actually taking an internship during school. We were actual teenagers.
Reminiscing, yeah, about that summer when I was working at that TV station for my school project.
Like, yeah, we know.
Then why were Shaggy and Scooby working at an airport? Explain me that, Daphne. So in this movie, Shaggy wins this competition promoted by Elvira, the queen of the Mistress of Darkness. Is this her title? I don't know. I have not watched her movies. He wins a contest that is like to go on this tropical island.
Shaggy is allowed to bring up to 3 guests along with them and 1 pet. A pet? Really?
That's kind of specific, isn't it? So they are going to this tropical island, and Shaggy makes the gang promise that they are not going to think about mysteries during this time. They are going to have fun, like enjoy the tropical island, and they are not going to solve anything. But the things get a little complicated when the island they arrive at doesn't really look to be a tropical island. The inn they are staying in looks a lot like the mansion from Moonscar Island, and zombies begin showing up. So yeah, this movie is terrible. I think it would have been a fine, although a little boring movie had it been divorced from Zombie Island, but since it's tied to the Zombie Island name, it makes everything a lot worse because you keep on comparing to the first movie that it's an actual good movie and you're like, oh my god, what is this? The first Zombie Island movie obviously had its jokes because it's a Scooby-Doo movie for children, but it also had a way more serious tone. It was supposed to be more spooky. This movie has the goofy tone that the latest movies have had.
Entire section on my big blog of mysteries called Unsolved Capers.
You have a blog?
And I like this tone in general, but I think it doesn't fit the Zombie Island setting. It's also really weird to read this as a sequel to Zombie Island because all the characters are characterized very differently from the first movie. Especially Fred, because in the first movie he was like this normal guy. I cannot think of an actor to give him. I don't know if he had that much of a personality, but like in this movie he's a himbo, like he has been in the past movies. And it's just so weird. You're like, Fred, it's been a year. Why are you acting like this? It takes like half an hour for any semblance of a plot to begin, so it's really boring. And turns out the plot twist in this movie is that this is actually a movie. Like, there's a movie director filming the whole thing and he wanted it to make like a movie without the consent of the Mystery Inc. members, but okay. He's trying to film one of those like homemade style horror movies. They end up finding that out pretty early on, which makes sense because everything is very obvious. And I think that this is a fine concept for a Scooby-Doo movie, but make it a separate Scooby-Doo movie. It makes no sense to be a Zombie Island movie, especially because they go out of their way to retcon everything that happened in the first movie. So as I talked about, Velma has been really skeptical in these past movies, and she is in this one too. She's like trying to prove that they didn't see actual zombies in the first movie. And for what? Like, what are we getting out of this? And although there are some funny moments,
Fred, gang, meet Seaver. He's our stuntman.
Howdy.
I think the writing in this movie is terrible. They are all the time trying to ignore what is happening and just harping on that thing of, oh, Shaggy asked us not to solve mysteries, so we are going to ignore what is happening. And it's so stupid. It's just done in a very unnatural way, I think. So yeah, this movie made me mad. It was not good. Next one. The next movie is Happy Halloween, Scooby-Doo from 2020, and this just makes me more upset that I couldn't get this video done in time for Halloween. But anyway, so in this movie it's Halloween, and huge jack-o'-lanterns, Halloween pumpkins, I think they are called jack-o'-lanterns, are coming to life and terrorizing everyone in town. And with the help of Elvira, Mistress of Darkness, and this guy named Bill something. What is he? Bill is a scientist. So the gang is going to solve this mystery. Woo! And I don't remember what the mystery exactly was. I know it has something to do with radiation or toxic matter, if I'm not mistaken, because I wrote down Cherno pumpkins in my notes. So if you want a Halloween Scooby-Doo movie, go watch The Goblin King. It's a way better movie. This movie also features Velma being incredibly skeptical of the supernatural, but she had some character development. It's just... So here's the thing, throughout this whole movie, Velma doesn't want to admit that she's afraid, that she has fears. And I did like that Velma admitted that she has fears and is afraid at the end. I especially liked that this was achieved with the help of Scooby and Shaggy because I love the trope of friendship saving the day. But I wish this had been tied back to the fact that she's so skeptical, you know? Velma is obsessed with finding solutions for the supernatural because she's afraid. Obviously, this felt like an obvious character choice to me, but they didn't go that route. If that was the case, we could have gone past this stereotype of a character that Velma has been assuming in the past movies, of just being cartoonishly skeptical of everything. But I knew this was not going to happen because, as I mentioned before, there isn't a Scooby-Doo canon. It seems like a reboot happens every movie. An example of this is that Scooby and Shaggy are never allowed to grow from being cowards. Even though they have some development in a movie, it's not going to get carried on to the next one. And it's the same for Velma. And that's okay. I don't have a problem with this aspect of this franchise. I think it leads to some fun stories. They can tell literally any story they want because there isn't a canon. But the thing is, I don't find Shaggy and Scooby's character traits that annoying, probably because I'm used to them or something, but I do find Velma's character trait really annoying, probably because these newer movies, or even the older ones, but especially these newer movies in this aspect of Velma's personality, they don't know a little thing called subtlety. So they are just always talking about how Velma is skeptical, how she's logical, how she doesn't believe these things, and it's just so annoying. But besides that, I think that's an okay movie. I wish I could remember more of what happens on it, but I can't because I watched 13 movies in 24 hours. Don't do that. I know at some point Velma says she could kiss Shaggy, which made me want to vomit. Elvira also reveals at the end that her wig is actually a monkey. And Velma says she has a mind palace. We are in Sherlock right now. I've actually never watched Sherlock. I only watched Sarah Zed's videos about it 100 million times. And I know that mind palace probably is an expression that exists outside of Sherlock. But now this is the only context I have of it. So now it makes me think of Sherlock. It has some ambientalistic messages. Friendship saves the day. I don't know. Mid-movie. The next movie is straight out of nowhere, Scooby-Doo meets Courage the Cowardly Dog from 2021. And I chose to watch this movie because I loved Courage the Cowardly Dog as a kid. So I was not alive while the show aired originally, but they used to play old cartoons in Cartoon Network like during the early morning. So I would wake up every day at 7 a.m. to watch Courage the Cowardly Dog because I loved the show. And so I'm just really sad to say that I'm disappointed by this movie. So basically in this movie, there's a bunch of cicadas attacking everyone. They're like big cicadas. So Scooby-Doo gets scared, runs away, and he bumps into Courage the Cowardly Dog, the man himself, the dog himself. So the gang goes to nowhere. They meet the Courage the Cowardly Dog characters like Muriel and Eustace. I don't know how to say his name, I'm sorry. And they interact and get confused about the cicadas. Then Muriel gets an invitation to go have dinner with the mayor of Nowhere. Yes, apparently Nowhere has a mayor. And they go to the mayor's house and the mayor keeps on saying, "Do you know I'm the mayor?" So that's not suspicious at all. Spooky stuff happens, more cicadas. They investigate, they go to the house's library where they address the theories that Nowhere is actually Area 51.
Some speculate that the mysteries stem from a nearby top-secret military base. Others are not so sure.
Which I thought was cool. So Shaggy has been in this movie using this self-help app on his phone. And so Shaggy, Scooby, and Courage bond over being cowards, which I really liked. It was nice. Eustace, I don't know how to say his name, Eustace, Muriel's husband. In Portuguese, I say Eustácio, so that is weird to me, but I don't know, Eustace, I'm going to say it this way. Eustace begins receiving money from random people. He goes home and he begins receiving money, and so he raps about having money. And if I saw that, you have to see it too.
Like a cash machine or casino, have a VIP, taking charge, living large, get the bourgeoisie out of nowhere.
Jesus Christ. Shaggy learns that Courage is acting despite of fear, not without fear. We see a bunch of Courage the Cowardly Dog villains. Courage's computer and Velma's tablet are in love. At the end of the movie, we discover the mystery has something to do with a meteor again, and the villain is LeQuack and Cats, both of them in disguise. And the movie ends with everybody doing a disco country dance. I think every movie should end like this. And in general, I like that this movie explored a little bit more about Nowhere. I like that the villains are Courage the Cowardly Dog's villains from the show. And I like to see the characters interacting. I think that this part was very wholesome. But I just found this movie to be really boring. I think there were a lot of boring chase sequences that I didn't care about. And I just didn't care that much about the mystery. Although this movie did end with a disco country dance sequence, and I loved that. So there's that. Finally, the last movie I watched, which is also the last movie that has been released, made for video, animated Scooby-Doo movie, and it is Trick or Treat Scooby-Doo, which was released in 2022. So this is the last movie that has been released, and it also has a new animation style. It's also set in Coolsville instead of Crystal Cove, and I read somewhere that this means these movies are supposed to be more lighthearted, like the ones that are set in Crystal Cove are the ones that are supposed to have a more intriguing mystery, be a little bit more spooky, while the goofier ones and like more lighthearted mysteries are in Coolsville. So in this movie, Mystery Inc. takes down the stylist of all the villains. They have the girl who makes their clothes and their costumes, and she goes to prison, and now nothing is interesting to them because all the villains are boring and easy to catch now because they don't have cool costumes. And the stylist, her name is Coco Diablo, which I think it's a fire name, I just want to say. So it's Halloween, and Fred wishes on a wishing well that they would have more mysteries because everything is boring. They are at a carnival again, fun times, and a ghost that resembles Fred shows up and attacks everyone. and they also destroy the mystery machine. Boo! So the gang thinks it's a costume, so they go visit Coco Diablo on prison to like talk to her about that. There they meet the security guy who claims he's the biggest fan of them. I feel like this is bullying against short people, and I am 5'1", so I am offended. Also, Velma falls in love with Coco Diablo, so yes, Velma is into convicted prisoners, as Daphne said. So yeah, Coco Diablo escapes. She helps the gang. Velma learns about gray morality. We meet this emo guy named Trevor.
Enhance more.
And at the end of the day, it was all the security guard from prison creating more mysteries because he was like sad that the mystery people were sad that they didn't have more mysteries, and he was a big fan, so he wanted to do something nice and he began a bunch of mysteries. Also, we discovered that the emo guy Trevor is actually a surfer dude beneath his emo skin, and he just wanted people to realize that. And I don't know, his design as a surfer dude is giving major Mabel's Bubble from Gravity Falls vibes. I don't know. And I guess I should say my opinion on this movie is that I'm kind of torn on it. In one hand, I do think the modern Scooby-Doo movie formula was way overdone. I watched way too many of these movies in one day, and this was to the point where all of the movies I was watching felt the same. Like Velma was this super skeptical person, Fred was a himbo, Daphne was the girl character, and they didn't take anything really too seriously. Like it was all very goofy, lighthearted tone. I liked some of these movies, but I do think they were getting way too generic. So I do think a change of pace was necessary and good. I like the new animation style. I think it looks very nostalgic. And I did like the sense of humor this movie had. I feel like it fit my sense of humor. But I don't know, it felt a little underwhelming. Like it wasn't bad, but it wasn't a movie that I finished watching and thought, oh, this was great. It didn't give me any vibes like Abracadabra Dude did, you know? And maybe this is because I am very drawn to nostalgia, and I have no nostalgia to like this animation style and this plotline or something. I just didn't feel the same thing. And obviously this is a more lighthearted mystery, so it's different from the other ones I was talking about. It wasn't even that spooky. I didn't talk about Halloween that much, as you see. There were some Halloween elements, but it wasn't anything too spooky. So I don't know, maybe that was the thing I had. I don't know. I'm excited to see more movies in the style to see what I'll think of it. Also, I need to address that I'm really happy that we finally get canon lesbian Velma, like on movie, like she likes a girl and that is addressed. I love that. I love that for her. I'm really happy that we finally got that. And even though I didn't love this movie, I'm still happy that it happened finally. Thankfully, no more shoehorned romance between Shaggy and Velma. We won, guys. So that was something that I was really happy about. And actually, this was something I had not heard anyone talking about. So when it began happening, I was like, oh my god, this is actually happening. And I was very excited. I'm happy about it. Thank you. So before I tell you guys my ranking of all these movies, I just been like, my raw footage is 2 hours long. I don't think it's going to be 2 hours at this point, but this very long time talking about. I want to just mention the movies that I was going to talk about too, but I ended up cutting because I wouldn't have the time to watch all of them. The first one was Cyber Chase. I love Scooby-Doo and the Cyber Chase. I think it's a great movie. I loved it as a kid, but I did not include it because it had nothing to do with Halloween, and I have rewatched it more recently than some other ones that I rewatched after some time that had nothing to do with Halloween, like Pirates Ahoy. It had been a while since I had rewatched it, so I chose it over Cyber Chase. And other two that I ended up cutting were the vampire ones. I don't remember what they're called. There's one from 2003 that I was going to talk about. I think it's The Legend of the Vampire. If I'm not mistaken, this is the title. So at first, the idea for this video was not going to be me watching 47 Scooby-Doo movies. I was going to talk about the Scooby-Doo movies that have the Hex Girls, because I love the Hex Girls. So it was going to be The Witch's Ghost and The Legend of the Vampire, this one from 2002 or 2003, I believe. But I ended up choosing more movies because I thought it was going to be too short of a video. I wanted a longer video. So I ended up cutting that idea off and got more movies. And when I did that, I realized that there was another vampire movie called The Song of the Vampire, I believe, The Music of the Vampire, something like that. It's from 2012, I want to say, I don't know, 2011, something like that. But I thought if I'm including one of the vampire movies, I have to include the another one. Like, it's weird if I don't include these two vampire movies because this is a Halloween video. I have to include the two vampire movies. And then I got annoyed by that and included none of them. So that's why I didn't talk about these. Also because I didn't want to watch The Music of the Vampire because I tried watching this movie with my sister like in the beginning of this year, and we both found it very boring and couldn't finish it. So my ranking of these movies are absolute last place. I don't even have to, like, there's no explanation needed. Return to Zombie Island, terrible movie, would not recommend. 12th place is one that I was hoping to be better, and it is Straight Outta Nowhere, Scooby-Doo meets Courage the Cowardly Dog disappointed me. I was upset by this one. 11th place is Scooby-Doo and the Curse of the 13th Ghost. I had to think about the title because I don't like this movie that much. 10th place is Happy Halloween Scooby-Doo. 9th place, Trick or Treat Scooby-Doo. I think it's an optimistic beginning for a new Scooby-Doo era, I guess, but I did not love it that much. I think it was, I don't know, it was fine. It was nothing too memorable. 8th place, Scooby-Doo Pirates Ahoy. I do have the nostalgia speaking for me. It's not a great movie, but I like because of the nostalgia, so what can I say? 7th place, Scooby-Doo and the Goblin King. The Halloween Scooby-Doo movie. Go watch it if you want a movie for Halloween, even though it's not Halloween anymore. 6th place, Frankencreepy. It would be higher if it weren't for the misogyny and fat phobia. 5th place, Scooby-Doo Stage Fright. I did really find this movie funny and fun, and I liked it. 4th place, Big Top Scooby-Doo. I like circuses. 3rd place is Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island. I do completely understand why this one is a fan favorite. It's really good, and I'm going to watch it more times now because I think it was a really nice movie. 2nd place for me, Scooby-Doo Abracadabra Do. I know that people don't love this movie as much, but I'm very nostalgic towards it and I love it, so there's that. And 1st place is Scooby-Doo and the Witch's Ghost. This one was my favorite one as a child. I loved it so much. I watched it multiple times. I still think it's one of the best ones. It has a very cool spooky tone that I love, and I recommend it a lot in any time of the year, not only spooky season. And so yeah, everybody, this is this video. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you so much if you watched it. I'll see you guys. I think I'm posting a video next week. I think I am. I hope so. It's my plan. And again, thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Comment down below what is your favorite Scooby-Doo movie, or like your least favorite, or like be mad at me because Zombie Island is not in 1st place. I'll see you guys soon. I really want to make my Buffy the Vampire Slayer video because I have no one to talk to about the show and I have so many thoughts. I need to make a video about it. In a couple of weeks, I'm going to the Era store in Brazil. I'm very excited about that. Again, thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this and I'll see you guys very soon. I'm sorry for not posting for 3 weeks. I was sick. Anyway, bye! Hello everybody, my name is Joanne. I don't know, I have never seen anything related to Phantom of the Opera. It has an ambientalistic It has some. Hello everybody, my name is Joanna, and I love that Daphne just accepts this. Good for her. Velma should be able to fall in love with prisoners if she wants to. She's so like me for real. Very creative. This dress is huge on me. I don't know if you can notice. I tried fixing it with hairpins. Hello everybody, my name is Joanna. I have a thing for witches.